Polyscience.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of Cannabis Tech Talks, brought to you by Polyscience. This is Patricia Miller, Managing Editor of Cannabis and Tech Today. With me is Gary Cohen, CEO of Cova Software. Cova is a point-of-sale system available throughout the US and Canada, and the company is now offering free seminars for cannabis retailers. That'll fill them in on all the ins and outs of running a dispensary, super needed service. Gary, thanks for joining us.
Tricia, how are you?
Doing real good. How's your day going?
It's good. I'm in the middle of an airport in Calgary, Alberta.
Oh, wow.
So if it gets loud, sorry about that.
No problem at all. I appreciate you talking with me.
I'm very interested in talking about this topic.
Yeah, maybe before we dive into these seminars, which I think is such a valuable service, I'd love just a little bit of background. How'd you first become involved with cannabis technology? What inspired you to get into that field?
That's a really good question. We spun out of a parent company. That parent company established themselves doing point-of-sale technology about 25 years ago. And they focused on the cellular phone industry. And that is about the most complex retail technology platform you can have. And most people don't think about what goes on when you go into a Verizon or a T-Mobile store. But between the handset, the rate plans, programming phones, insurance, warranty, on and on, it's very, very complex compared to just going in and buying a pair of shoes. And the system in the back just, deducts that pair off the inventory, and when it gets too low, it reorders more. That's about as complex as normal point of sale is. And what made that so hard was AT&T does it different than Verizon, and Verizon does it different than T-Mobile, and the Canadian companies do it all different. So it's just a mess. And they wound up getting about 84% share of all the cellular stores in North America over about 20 years. And they were looking to expand into new verticals. And when we were thinking about it, we have all this know-how for complex retail systems. So just expanding to a new vertical like sporting goods stores or convenience stores or shoe stores, we're way too much overkill for that. So to give you one more piece of background, so I'm originally from Colorado, but then I lived in California for 19 years. And between those two places, I had a lot of people I knew and grew up with that went into the cannabis business.
Okay.
And I was always kind of curious, like, how's this working? And how's it going? And, I am kind of Mr. Curious. So I was always probing and asking, but I really didn't know much more than the average guy. And when this idea came up, I contacted the people that I knew and said, tell me about especially the retail systems in the cannabis industry. And this was a little over 6 years ago, and across the board, everyone said the same 3 words. They all suck. And I went, well, you know what? That sure sounds like an opportunity to me. So that was really it. And it was, I connected the dots between what our parent company did to be so successful in the cannabis space, in the wireless industry space. And it's really no different than Apple. It was UI, UX. How do you make it really easy to use and easy to learn? And if you can create a platform that not dumbs it down, but makes it intuitive so that the lowest level employee could understand how to interact with it, that's the secret to success. So it's Apple didn't invent smartphones. They just made them really easy and created an app store where you could get things you wanted. So we took that same formula And that's how we got into this.
And did you do a lot of data analysis to figure out what would be the most crucial functions, or was it, just talking with retailers and learning what they needed?
I actually did the former. So I wound up, and we recognized we don't know anything about the cannabis industry. So step one was, going with that realization that it would be foolish for us to say, we can build something, we know exactly what you need.
Yeah.
So what I wound up doing was I probably met with 30 dispensary owners in 3 markets, in Washington, California, and Colorado. I asked them all the exact same 5 questions, which is Gary's 5 questions. And it was, what are you using now? Why did you pick it? What do you like about it? What don't you like? And if there were any innovations, what would you like those to be in relation to using this technology?
Those are good questions.
And honestly, that formed the foundation of what we prioritized. But there's one more piece besides that. So in those 30 meetings, I had and we were still well over a year from having anything to bring to market. I had a spiel about, we're a 20-some-year-old company. We have 84% share. Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, Rogers, Bell, TELUS are all on this platform. And across the board, the 30 people I met with said, we don't care. And the fact that we were well-funded, and it didn't matter. The one thing that mattered was compliance.
Oh, yeah.
And they all said, if you don't get that, none of the rest of it matters. And I'm not that smart of a guy, but after 30 people told me the same thing, I went back to Cova and I said, guys, our first job is compliance. And we decided we would be a compliance-first company. And we stuck to that principle. And it's proven to be a really, really sound basis to present our product to the market. It wasn't really features functionality first. It was, how do we build Cova so that it's not just from a regulatory standpoint compliant and connects with the state traceability system, but how do we build our software so that we, again, make it really easy to use, but take the human error elements out of being non-compliant. And that's probably the secret sauce in the whole thing.
I could see that. I think everyone I've spoken with over the years, that seems to be their main concern as well, is how can I keep my compliance and keep myself safe and my employees safe.
Well, and what these guys all said was, we've gone through so much to get this license that, here you are, an unproven company in the space, without some sort of kind of assurance or trust that you get it. It's just a non-starter. So and that just got incorporated into our mission, was to help them preserve their license.
All right, we are going to take a quick break to pay the bills, and when we get back, we'll have more from Gary Cohen.
Today's episode of Cannabis and Tech Talks is brought to you by ACS Laboratory, the largest hemp and cannabis testing facility in the southeastern United States, providing a nationwide courier service for CBD and hemp samples. From potency testing and terpene profiling to testing for residual solvents and heavy metals, ACS Laboratory offers a wide range of tests from their state-of-the-art 20,000 square foot ISO 17025 accredited laboratory. With 21 Emerald badges 2 years in a row, you can have the satisfaction knowing your results will be consistent and accurate. Learn more about ACS Laboratory, go to acslabcannabis.com.
And is that sort of what inspired you to launch these new educational seminars?
There's another whole story there. So, because of that compliance orientation, we've been incredibly deliberate about which states we go into. And just because we have limited resources, it's a pretty big lift to build out everything that a market needs. So, we would weigh what's the opportunity against what's the work to just go into a market. So if it was a brand new medical market in a really small state, and let's say there was a limited number of licenses, the likelihood that we're going to go do all of that internal work on the software plus the external connectivity into the state system probably doesn't add up, and have a positive return on investment. So Cova was very, very deliberate. And when we look at kind of the summer of 2018, Oklahoma had passed their medical marijuana initiative. And because it was a red state, it was a small state, and it was medical, we didn't get, when I say we, I'll blame myself. I didn't give it any attention. I was just kind of dismissed it because California was the biggest market. Michigan was coming. We have over 50% share of Canada, so we had our hands busy up there. And I didn't give Oklahoma any consideration. And then they started giving out licenses on October 1st. And I just started seeing all these leads, like a crazy number of Oklahoma leads. And Cova's always been really polite, and we send a really nice note that says, "Thank you for inquiring about our solution. However, we're not in your state, and if we ever are, we'll get a hold of you, but we wish you luck." And we're sending out, by the time we'd sent out 45 or 50 of those letters, I went, hold on, something's going on down there in Oklahoma. And we're obviously late to the party because all of our competitors had been, working or marketing to Oklahoma leading into those licenses for months and months. So, where there's smoke, there's fire. So I went to some of my sales guys and I picked out about 8 of the leads that looked legitimate, meaning they put a real name, not Johnny Stoner and a fake phone number, and a stupid email address. And I picked out 8 that looked like legitimate people. And I said, give these guys a call and say your CEO just wants to come down and learn about Oklahoma. He's not trying to sell you anything, just wants to learn. And all 8 said, yeah, we'll meet with them.
Nice.
So 6 of them were in Oklahoma City and 2 were in Tulsa. I flew down. This is late October. And I didn't realize they all wanted to pick my brain as much as I wanted to pick their brain. But what I learned was all 8 of them had either no retail experience, some of them had 0 business experience, and none had any cannabis experience.
Wow.
And I was a little shocked, and this one woman, she was going to use her insurance money from her husband's passing to start a dispensary. And she was like a retired school teacher.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't my place to say, you're getting in way over your head. It was people like that. And again, I just kind of said, these guys don't know what they're getting into. I saw some of them pay consultants in the tens of thousands of dollars to kind of help them write a business plan. And then this one person, I was shocked. they had a consultant from Kansas. I go, there's no cannabis in Kansas. And they said, no, I didn't know that. And I go, how'd you find this person? And they go, well, online. They said Cannabis Consulting. So I saw this whole void in knowledge. And I came up with this idea. I said, we should do these seminars of how to open a dispensary. And I created the curriculum. We did our first two in Oklahoma. One was in Oklahoma City. One was in Tulsa. We had probably 45 or 50 people at each. And when I do these, the first thing and there's 6 hours. So they're 3 hour and a half segments. And the first thing I say is, I want to promise you this is not an advertisement for Cova Software. And if I get salesy on you or go down that path, you've got a water bottle and a pen there. You can throw it at me. Stop me from my natural tendency. And then I live up to my promise. It's not about selling Cova. It's about these 3 areas that we think are really important for them to know to go into this with their eyes open. And my hope is that we give them a bunch of clues that they never thought of about things to think through and plan and budget for. So that's what happened. It was really the Oklahoma people being so naive about what they're getting into that we decided to do this.
Wow. I think that's super valuable. I think it's like that in a lot of newly legal states. Everyone wants to be part of the green rush, but very few know how to do it, Well,
3 weeks ago, I went to Mississippi, and I'm never doing this again. I did 4 seminars in 3 days in 3 different cities. And I felt like, I felt like The Who, like, man, this is like a rock and roll lifestyle to be on stage 6 hours a day and then going to the next city and doing it again and going to the next. But we had over 1,000 people registered in Mississippi.
Wow.
It was the most insane thing I've ever seen.
Well, so what are people expecting to learn when they show up? What are kind of the key points, key takeaways they're hoping to get from you?
Well, it's funny. We share exactly what the agenda is. So the first section is how to open a dispensary, and it's tailored to each market. So we look at where, for example, where is Mississippi with their regulations? Where are they in the application process? And what does that look like? What are the costs? What, depending on what we know or have to assume, what normally goes into the application? And in that section, we also talk about the financial projections of opening a dispensary.
Mm.
So in Mississippi was the first time there was kind of a sad aspect to it, because the application fee is $15,000.
Oh my word.
And then if it's approved, it's $25,000 for your first year license.
Wow.
That's $40,000, for a crack at the ball. And then we share based on market level indexing. Here's the labor cost, here's the real estate cost, here's normal cost to set up a retail operation, which includes, your display cases, refrigerators, safe, security system, like some of the regulatory reinforcements that are necessary for cannabis retail. And then we talk about how do you raise money? And what was sad was there were people in the audience who were thinking, well, Mississippi is going to be like Oklahoma, which was $2,500 for a license.
Mm.
And, you could just tell there was probably 1 in 10 in the room that, wow, this is, they're thinking to themselves, I can't get access to $200,000+ to start up this business.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because it's cannabis, we talk about, banking and how and where do people get money to do this. So in Mississippi, it was the first time I ever really saw people kind of bummed out that we shared the reality of what it is, not just the green rush, like jump on the train and you're going to make $1 million. Do you get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. No, that's clear.
That's the first section. The second section is all about compliance and taxation. And there I explain what seed to sale tracking is and why it's important
Mm-hmm.
for our industry, and what it means at the federal level that the states are, following that supply chain and chain of custody of where's the marijuana. So we get into that and the hows and whys. And then we talk about, 280E and the kind of the effects locally of how you got to track, whether it's excise taxes or marijuana taxes or city and state taxes. So we kind of open their eyes about, this is one of the things that can sink marijuana businesses because it is complex.
Mm.
And then the third section, which is in the afternoon, is best practices. So it's really taking everything we've known or learned out of the 2,000 dispensaries that are using our software. What are best practices to have a successful dispensary? And that gets into marketing, community outreach, inventory management, hiring, and a lot of it's the fundamentals of retail, and that's one of those things I talk about is, people are always pushing back on me that it's a dispensary, it's not a retail store. And I go, no, a dispensary is a retail store. All the elements of selling, merchandising, theft, fraud, as a market gets more mature and competition heats up, you're going to have promotions and specials and different customer groups with discounts like seniors and veterans. So I get into, it's better that you guys know where this is heading than get surprised by how this is going to evolve once you get your feet in it. I've probably done 25 of these, and the feedback is always exactly the same in every market, which is, I paid $150 or $250 or $400 to go to a seminar, and I got way more out of your free seminar than I got out of those. And I think that what they get out of it is, maybe you can tell, I'm pretty good at tying back real-world experience into the lesson. And this thing is just a 6-hour pay-it-forward thing. So we go out of our way to put a ton of content in that's practical. And I don't think everyone ever expects it. I think I make a joke. So I'll say, you guys were worried this was going to be like a timeshare thing.
Right.
Everyone always laughs. They do think, I'm going to an all-day thing. They buy me lunch. They are a little wary about taking the day off and going to this thing. But I guess they are expecting to learn things. I just think we over-deliver on what they were expecting.
How can people find upcoming seminars in their area?
we're going to do one in New Mexico, and I don't have the date right in front of me, and we're going to do one in New York City. And they're on the Cova site. We have Cova and events, so it would be under events.
Okay. Do you feel like technologies like Cova make it easier for entrepreneurs to take a risk and get into the industry?
Yeah, I would say, though, that it's got to be the technology and the level of service or support that goes with it. Because especially in what we're doing in this particular industry, you have so much complexity with all the regulatory overhead and compliance. And I have over 70 competitors in this space. And there's varying degrees of the ways to acquire this similar technology. Some are, order it online, figure it out yourself, watch videos or read manuals, all the way up to like us, which is super heavy hand-holding. And I usually find that the people who start with the do-it-yourself, order it online and figure it out, like if they're in a brand new cannabis state, that's next to impossible to do it right, figure it out, stay compliant, not get out of bounds.
Mm.
I think if you're in a mature state, you could go that path and probably figure it out because you understand the context of what that technology is supposed to be enabling. Does that make sense? So I think there's got to be a combination of the technology tied to education, training, and support.
That makes sense. If you could offer, a piece of advice to new retailers, what would it be?
I would say get someone on your team with cannabis industry experience. I think that that this almost always necessitates a guide, and that guide could be someone who is a store manager in a mature state that's had cannabis for a while, legal cannabis. I think the word legal
Yeah.
is a good one to plug in because everyone's got cannabis. I think that it's so funny. Like I'm not in the growing side of the business, but there's a million people who've grown cannabis in their dorm room, under a bunk bed, or in the basement, and they might have grown the greatest pot ever, but to go do it at scale legally takes expertise. And I would say the same goes for dispensaries. I don't think you can just conjure up all of the clues to make you successful.
Mm.
I think there is, for example, what do you buy? How do you buy it? How do you know what you're buying? How do you match the available product to your market and the demographics in your market? And if you've got no context or experience, you don't know what questions to ask, to stock your store. So you really, whether it's a consultant or someone who's got some experience doing this, I think is essential.
Yeah, that's super valuable advice. I learned a lot from this discussion. I really appreciate your insights, and I'm thrilled to share it with our audience. I know they'll get a lot from it.
Good. Well, thanks for even doing it. You just happen to pick a topic that it's kind of obvious I'm passionate about. I think this has turned around our business, or accelerated it, doing these seminars. So I love it, and I think it's been a really valuable differentiator in the market.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'd be interested to hear some feedback from your clients. I'm sure they've they've got a unique perspective too as to what they found most valuable from it. But I'll let you enjoy the rest of your time relaxing before your flight, and and I sure appreciate speaking with you.
Thanks again.
If you enjoyed today's episode of Cannabis Tech Talks, be sure to follow, like, and subscribe on Apple, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also pick up the most recent issue of Cannabis and Tech Today on Barnes & Noble newsstands across the country, or grab a copy for free on canatechtoday.com. That's all for this episode of Cannabis Tech Talks, brought to you by Polyscience. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, stay elevated.